Okay, I think I'm going to, I've unmuted myself and I'm going to switch on my camera. Roshanga, you there?
Hi, Jonty. Yeah.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome everybody to ChangeTalks. It's great to see some familiar faces have joined us, and some new ones too. So just a couple of introductions. I'm Jonty Abbott. I'm founder of ChangeTalks. We're now in our second year of ChangeTalks, and this is our first webinar. For those of you that are new to ChangeTalks, it's a network for IFS professionals where we meet to share ideas and insights about all things IFS and also ERP. So just before we get on to the main part of the webinar, I just want to name check a couple of people behind the scenes. So Lloyd is here in case we hit any technical challenges. I might get a note or two from Lloyd as we go along. He's got a couple of polls that he's planning to run a bit later during the webinar. He'll be in touch to give me a nudge if I'm running over, and he'll also let Roshanga and I know if we've got any good questions from you that we can answer at the end. We've also got Brad, who will be sharing insights on social media, and Sophie has been helping us to curate a guide to accompany the webinar, which we're going to share later this week and send directly into your inboxes. So today, I'm delighted to say we're joined by Roshanga Kulathanga. Roshanga, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you, Jonty.
Good. Do you want to introduce yourself? Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, actually, I joined IFS before joining Change8 back in 2009 and worked around 13 years there and moved to Change8 3 years ago. And I played a key role in CRIM project, which was the first successful cloud implementation in the UK. And then I was the lead technical consultant of the Flamingo cloud implementation project as well, which won the best cloud implementation of the year in the IFS Connect last year.
Yeah, that must have been really good to hear. Okay, well, I'm hoping you can draw on some of your experience in both of those projects as we go through. But hopefully, I'll start off with an easy one for you, Roshanga. So, what are CRIMs?
CRIM is a very common acronym in IFS ecosystem for quite some time, I think. And actually, C stands for configurations. And configurations are things that you can add from the IFS application itself without touching the code. And someone without much technical expertise also could do configurations. For an example, if you want to add a simple custom field or a menu or something like that, you can do it as a configuration without doing it as a mod. And that's about configurations. And sometimes you can write utility packages as well to support configurations in as PL/SQL code. And in previous versions, it was very common having utility packages as well. And R stands for reports. In IFS, there are various types of reports available. IFS provided IFS report designer reports, Crystal reports, SQL quick reports, Excel plugin reports, and business reports. There are a number of reports available in IFS. And I stands for integrations. Integrations are something if you want to connect your legacy application with IFS, then you have to write integrations to communicate with IFS. In previous versions, IFS Connect framework was the most popular integration platform, but in cloud IFS now they have exposed projections through REST APIs, so you can write any tool using your preferred programming language, even Java, .NET or PHP, or you can use already available integration platform like Boomi, which is very common these days. So its integration has become very popular and very easier in cloud, IFS cloud rather than in previous versions. So M stands for modifications. For an example, if you want to do a complex, if you have a very complex requirement, then you need to go for a modification rather than a configuration, and you need to extend the code, and you need to write your own modification in the modification layer or customization layer. And in cloud and in Appstain, you have layered architecture. So yeah, you can write your modifications without affecting the core functionality. So it's about CRIMs. Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, so I think we're gonna focus a little bit today on the kind of the C and the M within the CRIM. But before we get onto that, well, why do we even need CRIMs, Roshanga? Why do we need them?
Normally, IFS core application or the core product comes with certain set of functionalities. So sometimes customer wants to customize it to suit it for their business activities. So it's very common. CRIMs are very common in each and every customer. I haven't seen any customer without a CRIM. So it's very common. So without CRIMs, you cannot actually, if you want to convert your IFS application standard product to suit your business needs, then it's inevitable.
Yeah. And so how many CRIMs does an IFS implementation typically have then?
Yeah, it's thousands sometimes. I have seen around 1,000 CRIMs for some customers. So it's very common.
Yeah, and does it ranges depending on the complexity, presumably, and the fit up to the business?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So I'm interested in learning a little bit more about is how things are changing. So we're changing the way that we make changes technically to IFS in cloud. But before we come on to talk about those changes, could you tell us a little bit about how we've been used to doing it in apps versions up to 10? So how do we apply CRIMs to production up to version 10?
In previous versions, the end users or customers, they didn't have access to source code, and we had to rely on configurations most of the time. And we can bundle these configurations into application configuration packages or simply ACPs, and we can deploy them across the environments. And also we used to write a lot of PL/SQL utility packages as well to support these configurations. And we used to write these configuration code also inside these utility packages as well. So we have to manually deploy them in database in production or non-production environments of the customer. But in cloud, it has changed a lot.
Yeah, we'll come on to that in a minute. But just tell me a little bit about. So obviously we can make we can do configs that relies on maybe a lesser technical or can be done with lesser technical expertise, and then we'd apply changes via PL/SQL and SQL using utility packages. But also we had to rely on IFS to do major changes through the modifications. So did they apply those through utility packages as well?
No, basically IFS, they have in previous versions they had the source code. So they what they used to do is they did all these customizations using this based on the core code. So they deploy it through deliveries in previous versions, and in cloud it has changed.
Oh yeah. So okay, so just a kind of playing it back to you, sort of in versions up to apt 10. We've got configs that we're applying through ACPs. We've got PL/SQL and SQL changes through util packages, and then we've got IFS making the more complex changes themselves through delivery. So how's that all changed now that we're moving or have moved to cloud?
Yeah, the biggest change is that now customer, they have the access to their source code through the source repository, and IFS they have provided a portal or a tool build place. So through the build place, customer can check out their source code, and they can develop their modifications and test and deliver across use place environments. So it has changed completely in IFS Cloud.
Got you. And I mean that's a good thing, right? Isn't it? Does that give us? Is there opportunities for us there?
Yeah, exactly. Because in previously, if you want a complex mod, then you always have to go to IFS and do it. But now you can do by yourself if you have the technical expertise, or you can go for another partner or someone, and they can do it for you.
Yeah, so we've got kind of more opportunity. We've got more control, and you know, obviously you've come across that change, working particularly on the projects that you've mentioned for the UK's first cloud implementation, and also the most recent implementation with Flamingo. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you faced, kind of moving from how you do things on apps 10 to how you do things in cloud?
Yeah, actually, if you are in a previous version and upgrading to IFS Cloud, in previous versions you have lots of CRIMs, and some CRIMs have configs code written in utility packages as well, and some configs have their and they have interdependencies to each other, and it cannot exist in IFS Cloud. Because in cloud you cannot mix configuration code with standard code. So in that case, you have to remove all these dependencies and all these custom configurations out of utility packages, and then you have to convert them back into a standard fields. You need to model them in IFS Cloud as standard entities and fields. So that was a bit of a challenge, and it's always good to do some analysis and identify what are the fields which are going to affect when you are going to deliver something in IFS Cloud. So it's better to get some advice, some help from a technical expert before you move on or start your IFS implementation in IFS Cloud.
Yeah, so I'm sort of thinking, you know, we've been progressing through IFS versions. We may have, you know, gone live on 10, or we may have been on previous versions. We've been tweaking, changing, adapting the way that we use IFS through its product lifecycle. So is it fairly normal that we'd have a mixture of kind of low technical kind of configurations that we've applied? We've got some PLSQL, then we may have gone to IFS for modifications in the past. I mean, you know, is it typical that we'll have quite a few different variants of that we've used?
Yeah, it's very likely that if you have thousands of CRIMs, then always you have dependencies, right? And there can be some configs which have less dependencies into other configurations. So they might not have any code written inside these utility packages. So it's one type of configs. So you can easily convert them or upgrade them into IFS Cloud straight away. But sometimes there can be configs which has connections to some other configurations or reports or IELs or whatever though. So you need to identify them, and you need to handle them separately, because upgrading them into cloud is not straightforward. And there is another category which has some code written inside PLSQL files as utility packages. So it's not possible for you to migrate them into cloud, because in cloud you cannot have these configurations or custom configuration code inside PLSQL. So you need to remove them from these utility packages, and as I mentioned earlier, you need to convert them into standard entities and fields.
Got you. So I guess just playing that back to you, one of the key differentiators is that, we used to use utility packages quite a lot in previous versions up to apps 10, because that was where we could do our own PLSQL and SQL changes and apply those to IFS. We'd also use ACPs for the kind of lower technical changes, and we had IFS doing deliveries into the code base. But now in cloud, we can't use util packages. That's what you're saying. So we've just got the combination of ACPs and deliveries that we can utilize in cloud. Just tell me a little bit more about what those interdependencies between ACPs and deliveries that we're applying through the build place. Why can that cause us problems?
Yeah, one thing is like some configurations they might use another configuration to pull data, right? In that case, there are dependencies. So then first the referenced config should go first, and the next one after that. But that order is not maintained all the time when you send ACPs through delivery pipeline. So it's not handled sometimes, and the correct order should be first. These entities, enumeration should go first, then custom entities, then persistent fields, then read-only fields. That should be the correct order, but it's not always maintained. If you check in these ACPs into delivery pipeline or the source repository. So that's going to be a challenge. If it throws any errors, then you will end up with a lot of problems, because you cannot send corrections into a use place environment as a delivery. It's getting failed. So you need to handle that carefully. You need to find what are the dependencies you have, and you need to take them away, and you should try to maintain the correct order. So it's going to be a challenge in cloud.
And did you run into some of these difficulties in some of the projects that you worked on?
Yeah, we had a lot of issues in Flamingo as well. Where there was a lot of CRIMs, a lot of configs, more than 1,000 configs. So there, and we hit a lot of issues when we trying to deliver code. When we trying to create delivery environments in the build place. So we had to take out around 150 odd number of configs, and we converted them into proper entities and entity fields in IFS as modifications.
Okay, and when you did that, that gave you back that control that you could sequence things in the proper way.
Yeah, after that issues were sorted, and we were able to create delivery environments without issues. So that is why I mentioned previously as well. So we need to do some analysis first. We need to identify what are the things which will cause issues in future, then take them out from the configs.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So is that something everybody could be doing to kind of understand, what potential impacts there are? Could everyone be doing that analysis?
I think it's always good to get some technical advice from an expert like us, because it's always going to be challenging for the customers to identify what are the things which will go wrong in their cloud implementation. So it's always handy to get some advice from a technical expert beforehand.
Yeah, and then if we sort of identify that, because I'm sort of thinking, as a developer, managing a product, as we approach cloud or into cloud, we're moving towards that evergreen product, right? So there's going to be more releases, more regular releases, and imagine having a reliable delivery mechanism, a way of shipping code. That's quite important, particularly as we move towards evergreen.
Yeah, exactly, because now since the IFS they have given you the source code, then you can easily do these modifications, isn't it? So it's always you need to make sure that you have reliable delivery mechanism without without hitting any roadblocks. So it's always you should be able to send your deliveries without any problems, without any dependencies, because without creating a delivery environment, you cannot send your changes into your use places. So it's very vital, very important to be able to create a delivery environment without any issues.
Got you. Okay. So yeah, I'm just seeing some questions come through, so I'm going to be interested to have a look at what those look like in a minute. But you know, if anyone's considering the move to cloud, Roshanga, I know you've covered quite a lot of it. Is there anything else any other advice you'd give? Any other anecdotes from the projects you've worked on that would be of interest?
Yeah, actually, the most important thing is that before starting any project work, you need to do some analysis about the CRIMs. It's not only about configurations and modifications, but there can be reports as well, and IALs and integrations, as we discussed before. So there are so many changes, and also some configs are there. You can straight away export them into cloud like custom feeds, but in our RMB menu options and things like that, you cannot straight away port them into cloud. You need to remodel it as command buttons in cloud. So there are things that you need to take note of. So it's always good practice. It's always a good practice to do some analysis before you start straight away.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Okay, wonderful. So thanks very much for all your insight there. I'm just going to flip to see whether we've got any questions that we can go to. I thought I saw one pop up in the chat. So okay. So yeah, just a great question here. I think it's from Martin. So if customers can even pull their source from the build place repo, what does prevent them from using utility packages then?
The utility packages still can be used in cloud, but what we talked about is you cannot have this configuration code inside these utility packages anymore in cloud. You can create utility packages into Developer Studio because you can model them, and you can create a utility package and you can write your own code there. But the only difference is that in previous versions in app 7, app 7, 5, 8, 9, you can write config code inside these PLSQL utility packages to support these configurations, but it's no longer possible in cloud. Yeah, that's the difference.
Right. Thank you. Okay. I'm just looking for Lloyd. Lloyd, is there any other questions that we've got that have come through as yet? I think we had something from Pete McDermott as well. Pete, thanks for sending that through. So just reading through what Pete's been saying. So he said, I think Roshanga is more talking about the approach taken. Best practice in IFS Cloud is to develop utility packages formally through the build place using IFS Developer Studio and deploy it to use places via a delivery. Is that does that resonate with you, Roshanga?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that we discussed previously as well,
Yeah.
Jonty. Yeah, you still can use utility packages. You can model them in Developer Studio in cloud to support your modifications or configurations. But the only difference is that you cannot write any config code inside it.
Got you. Okay, thank you. Look, we've talked a lot about the C and the M, and you've mentioned the R and the I of CRIM. I mean, I'm wondering whether CRIM is still a viable phrase really as we move to cloud. I mean, certainly from what I've learned from speaking to you, there's a lot more to the technical strategy with regard to IFS than CRIMs themselves. And I know one thing that you've mentioned to me in the past that perhaps is something we can talk about in another webinar, but be interesting for you to touch on just briefly now is kind of access and roles and permissions. You know, just tell us a little bit about that. How important is that to our technical strategy?
Yeah, it's very important because it's very common that what I have seen in my projects. So customers face a lot of problems just after go live because they haven't paid much attention to these this user access and permissions and things like that. So it's always good to create a report or kind of thing with your existing system against your existing system, and to identify what are the roles should be given in IFS cloud, because the cloud in cloud this architecture is completely different. In previous versions they have a presentation object where you can directly grant these database objects to these presentation objects, but in cloud now you have projections. The structure is different, so you need to map these permission presentation object structure into projections in cloud. So it's a bit of a difficult thing, so it's always good to analyze this change before you start go live, because otherwise users will hit issues and they couldn't work just after go live, because they have all sort of permission issues.
Yeah, I think if we spend lots of time developing great new functionality for end users and then they have difficulty accessing it, that's one of the key things. And I think that's where, you know, the technical strategy and perhaps CRIM doesn't quite cover it, you know, in terms of all of the competencies we need to bring. So look, there's just one interesting question just dropped in, so I'm gonna read it out, Roshanga. I don't know whether can you see it in the chat. It's from Manolak. So just asking, IFS was working, or at least was thinking of, providing tooling for conversion of ACPs into cloud-friendly configs, maybe a porting tool or something similar. Do you know if they've succeeded in that? Have you ever used such tooling from IFS? Have you go on? You look like you're going to answer.
Yeah, it's good to have such tool, but unfortunately I haven't tried out yet. It's good to have, because as Manulak mentions, there can be some elements in previous versions could not be directly mapped or ported into cloud, like menu options. So it's always good to have some kind of a tool. I don't know whether IFS they have invested in it, so it's good to have it, but I haven't used it.
Okay, all right. Maybe something we can follow up on in a further installment of ChangeTalks webinars. So look, there's some other questions coming through, and if we can't answer anymore because time is nearly up. But what we will do is get back to you. You know, I'll share those with Roshanga after we wrap up, and we'll get back to you with any answers. I think, look, there's so much more that we can cover in future webinars. I think we've only just scratched the surface. Really interested in getting everybody's feedback on what they've learned today and how relevant they found it. Luckily, we've got a guide that we're going to share, so that'll be coming out, as I mentioned at the start. So look out for that landing in inboxes and being shared on social media. You can follow us on LinkedIn and on our ChangeTalks website, which is www.changetalks.uk. And then finally, as the graphic is showing at the moment, really looking forward to our next event, which is in June. It's an in-person meetup where we'll be talking more about the technical strategy for IFS in cloud. So if you fancy coming along to that, please click the link and register, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. So finally, just to say thanks to all the team for helping pull this together, and thank you, Roshanga, for spending your time and going through things with us. It's much appreciated.
Pleasure. Thanks, Jonty.
Thanks, everybody.